Iliad.
The armies advanced and met in a single space with a clash of shields, spears, and bronze-armored warriors. The bossed shields collided and a great roar went up. The screams of the dying, the jeers of the victors, and the earth ran with blood. As two mountain rivers in winter, fed by their great springs high up, meet in full spate in some deep ravine, while far off in the mountains a shepherd hears the thunder, such were the yelling and the turmoil as the two armies came to grips. Antilochus was the first to kill his man, brave Echopolis, who was fighting in full armour in the Trojan front ranks. Anchialus hit him on the ridge of his plumed helmet. The bronze spear hit Echopolis' forehead and pierced right through the bone. Darkness engulfed his eyes and he crashed like a tower in the thick of action.
I couldn't hear you say I was dying.
Pallas Athene now inspired Diomedes, son of Tydeus, with determination and bravery, so that he might eclipse all the Greeks and win heroic glory. She made his shield and helmet glow with a steady blaze, like Sirius the autumn star which rises from its bath in the ocean to shine brightest of all. Such was the fire she made blaze from his head and shoulders as she thrust him into the very heart of the battle where the fighting was at its most confused. There was a Trojan called Dares, rich and handsome, who was a priest of Hephaestus. He had two sons, Phegeus and Idaeus, both experienced in every kind of fighting. These two detached themselves from the rest and launched themselves against Diomedes in their chariot, while he went to meet them on foot. When they had come within range of each other, Phegeus was the first to launch his long, shadowed spear, but the spear point passed over Diomedes' left shoulder and did not hit him. Then Diomedes, son of Tydeus, replied with his bronze spear. It did not leave his hand for nothing. It hit Phegeus in the middle of his chest and knocked him out of his superb chariot, which Idaeus then also deserted by leaping out of it, not daring to stand over his brother's body, and black destiny which had got him too, if Hephaestus had not come to the rescue and wrapped him in night, saving him so that his aged priest Dares, their father, might not be utterly broken by grief. Great-hearted Diomedes drove the men's horses off and told his followers to take them back to the hollow ships. When the great-hearted Trojans saw that one of Dares' sons had fled for his life and the other killed beside his chariot, panic threatened. Their great-eyed Athene took the wild war-god Ares by his hand and said, "Ares, murderous Ares, butcher of men and sacker of towns, is it not time for us to let the Trojans and the Greeks fight it out and leave it to Father Zeus to decide who will win the glory? Let us to leave the field of battle before we make him angry." So she spoke, led wild Ares out of the fight, and made him sit down on the high bank of the river Scamander. As a result, the Greeks pushed back the Trojans, and each of their leaders killed his man. First Agamemnon, lord of men, hurled great Idaeus, leader of the Halizons, out of his chariot. Idaeus was the first to turn, and Agamemnon stabbed him with his spear in the middle of the back between the shoulders, and drove it through his chest. He thudded to the ground in a great pile of blood, and his armor cattered around him. Next, Idomeneus killed Hephaestus, who had come from fertile Tane in Meronia. Just as Hephaestus was getting into his chariot, the great spearman Idomeneus pierced his right shoulder with his long spear. Hephaestus crashed out of his chariot, and hateful darkness engulfed him. Idomeneus' followers then stripped his body. Then Menelaus, son of Atreus, put the brilliant spear hunterman Scamandrius with his sharp spear. Scamandrius was a great man for the chase, who had been taught by the goddess Artemis herself how to bring down any kind of wild game that lives in the mountain forests. But Artemis, who delights in arrows, was of no help to him now, nor were the long shots that had won him fame. The Scamandrius fled before him, the great spearman Menelaus, son of Atreus, stabbed him with his spear in the middle of the back, between the soldiers, and drove it on through his chest. He crashed down with his face and his armor clattered about him. Next, Meriones killed Pericles, son of Tecton, Harmon's son, who could turn his hand to the most intricate kind of work. Pallas Athene had no greater favourite. It was he who had built for Paris those balanced ships that had started all the trouble and proved such a curse to the whole Trojan people, and eventually to himself, since he knew nothing of the oracles of the gods. Meriones pursued him, but when he caught him, hit him in the right buttock. The spearhead passed clean through into the bladder under the pubic bone. He dropped to his knees with a scream, and death enveloped him. Then Meges killed Pedaeus, an illegitimate son of Antenor's, whom Berthiano, Antenor's wife, had conscientiously brought up like a child of her own to please her husband. The great spearman Meges caught this man and hit him with his sharp spear on the nape of the neck. The point came through between his teeth and cut out the root of his tongue. He collapsed in the dust and bit the cold bronze with his teeth. Meanwhile, Eurystheus killed godlike Hypsenor, who served as a priest to the river god Scamander and was honored like a god by the people. As Hypsenor fled before him, the glorious Eurypylus closed in at full tilt and slashed at his soldier with his sword. His great arm was shorn off and fell bleeding to the ground. Inexorable destiny and purple death closed his eyes. So they fought it out in the heart of the battle. As for Diomedes himself, he could not have told to which army, Trojan or Greek, he belonged. He stormed across the plain like a winter torrent in state, bursting dikes as it races along when the skies open, and neither close-packed embankments nor walls built to protect fertile gardens can contain its sudden onslaught. And far and wide it flattens good work of industrious farmers, so the dense ranks of the Trojans were thrown into confusion by Diomedes, unable for all their numbers to withstand him. But when Pandarus, Lycaon's son, splendid son, saw Diomedes storming across the plain and driving the ranks of confusion ahead of him, he lost no time but bent his curved bow, took aim, and hit him as he raced ahead in the right shoulder on the plate of his armor. Piercing Diomedes' plate, the bitter arrow went right on through, and his body armor was splattered with blood. Pandarus gave a great shout, "Great-hearted Trojans! Forward and at them, charioteers! The best man they've got is hit, and after a shot like that, I don't think he'll last much longer. If he really was Lord Apollo, son of Zeus, who sped me on my way here when I left Lycia." So he spoke, boasting, but the flying arrow did not bring Diomedes down. He fell back, came to a halt by his horses and chariot, and spoke to his charioteer, Capenus, son of Sthenelus. "Quick, Sthenelus, old friend, get down from the chariot and draw this wretched arrow from my shoulder." So he spoke, and Sthenelus leapt from his chariot to the ground, came over to him, and pulled the arrow right through his shoulder and out the other side. The blood came gushing out through his strongly woven tunic, and Diomedes, master of the battle cry, prayed to Athene, "Listen to me, daughter of Zeus, who drives the storm cloud, Antium. If ever in the past you wished me and my father Tydeus well, and stood by us in the heat of battle, be kind to me again, Athene. Let me kill Pandarus, bring him within range of the man who shot me before I saw him, and now he's boasting about it and saying I won't see the day of light much longer." So he spoke in prayer, and Pallas Athene heard him and removed the heaviness from his legs and arms. She went up to him and spoke winged words. "Now, Diomedes, you can win the fight and fight the Trojans in full confidence. I have filled your heart with fearless determination of your father Tydeus, the shield-bearing Thyatira. Also, I have swept the mist from your eyes and made you able to distinguish gods from men. Now, in case a god comes along, Do not fight with any of them. With one exception only. If Aphrodite, a daughter of Zeus, comes into battle, stab her with your sharp spear. With these words, grey-eyed Athene left, and Diomedes went and engaged once more in the front ranks. Even without Athene, he had been determined to fall upon the enemy again, and now he possessed 3 times the determination. Like a lion which a shepherd in charge of the fleecy sheep on an outlying farm has wounded as it leaps over the fence, but failed to kill, he only rouses the lion to greater fury. But now he cannot keep it off, so it gets in amongst the folds, and the abandoned sheep run in panic. They are left piled up in heaps against each other, and the lion, as determined as ever, jumps the high wall and escapes. With such determined, did mighty Diomedes charge the Trojans. He killed, firstly, Astenoius and Hyperion, shepherd of people. He hit one above the nipple with his bronze spear, and then struck the other, with his great sword on the collarbone by his shoulder, severing the shoulder from the neck and back. He left them there lying and went after Abas and Polydius, son of Eurydamas, an old man who interpreted dreams. But the old man interpreted no dreams for these two when they set out for Troy, and Diomedes killed them both. Then he went after Xenus and Thum, son of Phaenops, both late born. Phaenops was old now and ailing, and had no other son to whom he could leave his wealth. Diomedes killed them both, depriving them of their precious lives and leaving their father only tears and a broken heart. He never welcomed them home again alive from the war. Relatives divided up the estate. Diomedes' next victims were the 2 sons of Dardanian Priam, Echemon and Chromius, who were riding in the same chariot. As the lion pounces on cattle, grazing peacefully at pasture, and breaks the necks of a great ox or heifer. So Diomedes gave them no option, but brutally forced them out of their chariot, stripped them of their armor, and gave their horses to his men to drive to the ships. Aeneas, seeing what happened, Diomedes was making of the Trojan lines, set out through the battle and the hail of missiles in search of godlike Pandarus. When he found Laocoon's handsome mighty son, he went up to him and said, "Pandarus, what is happening to your bow, your winged arrows, your reputation as an archer? You are supposed to be the best archer in Lycia, can boast better than any we have in Troy. So leave your hands in prayer to Zeus and fly at that man over there. I do not know who he is, but he is having it all his own way, and has done us a great deal of harm already, and already brought many of our best men doom. Unless it's our angry god resentful at some shortcomings in our rights. If it is, his anger is taking a heavy toll." Pandarus, son of Lycaon, replied, "Aeneas, advisor to the bronze-armored Trojans, if you ask me, that man is Diomedes to the life. I recognize him by his shield and plumed helmet. I know his horses, too, when I see them. On the other hand, it may be a god. I do not know for sure. But if it is the man I take him for, more like Diomedes, I can see surely the god standing by him, wrapping him in a mist, to have made my flying arrow swerve when it was dead on course, because I have shot at him already, and I hit him in the right shoulder, clean through the plate of his armor. I certainly thought that would see him off to Hades, but somehow I failed to kill him. So perhaps it is some resentful god after all. And here I am, without a chariot or horse to carry me. In my father like going to Paris, let me tell you, I have 11 splendid chariots, flesh from the joiners, brand new. They are still under their protective cloths, and a couple of horses stand by each.